I'm Polly, and I was my mother's firstborn. I was born into a woman who was still figuring herself out. She married my dad, Scott, young, shortly after graduating from high school. Their primary concern was love, rather than money, which didn't last long. When she met Kyle, a wealthy guy with a gorgeous car, I was still a young child. With the exception of picking up the alimony checks, she never looked back after taking me and leaving my dad. Kyle appeared kind at first. He would play with me in his large, glossy office while bringing me little gifts. But my mother moved away from him. She constantly gave me the look that said I brought up memories of a life she wished to forget. One evening, I was supposed to be watching TV when I heard them conversing in the kitchen. She resembles Scott too much, my mother remarked angrily. Always asking questions, always looking at me like he used to. It ached to hear her talk about me as though I was a problem, even though at the time I didn't comprehend what she meant. I cherished my biological father, even though he lived in a tiny apartment across the city. Spending time with him was always enjoyable, even if we were just playing in the park or getting takeout pizza. That night, my mother said something that really resonated with me, and over time, she just grew more critical. Whenever I attempted to assist her around the house or completed my homework in the living room, she would ask, "Can't you do anything right?" In contrast, my dad was not like that. He would always say, "You're doing great, Polly," whether I showed him my grades or her school drawing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. When I started school, things at my mom and Kyle's house became more tense. My mother was constantly stressing about how important it was for me to look good, dress nicely, and hang out with the correct kids. "Why are you unable to dress like the daughter of Karen?" she would say. Look at her, and show me a photo from a gathering to which I was not invited. I finally lost it one day after Mother reprimanded me for dragging muck into the hallway. At least Dad doesn't yell about a bit of dirt. Before I knew it, her hand was burning my cheek with a slap. Her face was near to mine, her breath smelling of coffee and rage. "Don't talk about your father like that," she whispered. My eyes began to well up with tears, but I controlled them as my father had taught me to do. I made a pact to myself that night as I lay in bed that I wouldn't let her see me cry. I wouldn't satisfy her in that way. The whole house felt different when Mom said she was pregnant again, as if a major, unfavorable change was about to occur. Although she seemed to have that radiance that people talk about when they're expecting, it never seemed to light on me. The man I love and I are expecting a baby. One evening, Mom was stroking her belly and Kyle was beaming like he had won a prize. "Kyle, it's going to be perfect," Mom exclaimed. Trying to be charming at all times, Kyle said, "We'll need to redo the guest room, make it fit for a little princess." They were discussing my room, my small space in their universe, and it broke my heart. Trying not to stutter, I asked, "What about my room?" Mom gave me a look and tightened her smile. "Polly, you are free to relocate to the smaller room. It's just the newborn will require the room." The way she used the word fair suggested that there was no need for debate. Thus, I relocated, gathered my belongings, and took up residence in the house's tiniest room, which was no larger than a closet. After a quick turn of events, Mary was born. Everyone had nothing to say but about her. "Isn't she just the most beautiful baby you've ever seen?" Cradling Mary as though she were the most wonderful thing in the world, Mom would gush to her friends over the phone. "Yeah, she's cute," I would murmur, attempting to enter the dialogue. Cute was putting it mildly. Mary possessed an appealing quality that made me fall in love with her right away. I wanted to be involved, helpful, and a nice big sister. I tried to get into Mary's room one afternoon when Mom was in the kitchen. I crept in and peeked over my sister's crib to see her contentedly babbling. I softly said, "Hey there, Mary," and held out a finger for her to take. Mom, though, must have heard me because all of a sudden she was at the door with a knife-edged sharp voice. "Polly, what are you doing? I instructed you to inquire before entering her room," I argued, feeling the familiar sting of tears prickling my eyes. I just wanted to see her. Dad was different, though, and I wanted to assist. I confided in him on one of our Saturdays together over pizza at our go-to restaurant. "When I'm around Mary, Mom gets nervous all the time. She seemed to be afraid that I would break her or something," I remarked. After giving it some serious thought, Dad said, "You know, Polly, some people just have a hard time sharing love. They act as though there is a finite amount of resources available, but never forget that you have a big heart. Don't allow your mother's actions lead you to believe differently." His remarks did not entirely close the gap between us back at Mom's house, but they did assist a little. Mom would never listen to me when I tried to tell her stories about my friends or school. She would always spend half of her time watching Mary. I once won second place in the science fair and brought a school award home with me. I was giddy with excitement, holding onto the certificate as if it were a pass to their acceptance. I held it out to Mom, saying, "Look, Mom, I won this," as she was feeding Mary. She said, "That's nice, dear," without raising her eyes. "Put it on the fridge or something." Or something, I repeated to myself, but the meaning seemed hollow. I took a step back and somewhat crookedly placed the certificate on the fridge. It was just another document, just another day spent under Mary's watchful eye. Things at home were quite difficult by the time I started high school. I felt less like a member of the family and more like a guest because of Mom's chilly shoulders and Kyle's lack of interest. That's when the big news hit. Mom decided it was time for me to move in with Dad full-time. We were eating supper together the day she told me. It was one of those infrequent occasions when the table was exclusively hers and mine. Mary was already asleep when Kyle arrived home from work late. "Polly, we need to talk about your future," Mom said as she moved her meal about on the fork. Her tone was chilly and businesslike. There was no warmth about it, and that made me uneasy right away. "What about it?" I tried to seem nonchalant as I asked, but my heart was beating quickly. "After much consideration, we've decided that moving in with your father would be best for you. The arrival of the new baby has made things here, well, complex." I nearly asphyxiated on my water. "Are you moving in with Dad? However, why? I assumed everything in this place was okay." Mother let out an irritated sigh. "Look, Polly, you are no longer a child. We are unable to give you the privacy you require in this new environment. It's little and, to be honest, more expensive than we anticipated. This is better for all parties involved." I moved my plate away, having lost my appetite. "How about education? My pals?" she stated. "You can go to a new school and make new friends," as if changing schools was that easy, and that my life could be easily restarted. I had the impression that I had to completely delete my life and start anew. The next few weeks were a blur as I packed up my things, my whole world shrinking into boxes, books, clothes, and the few keepsakes that meant something to me. Kyle barely said goodbye, and Mary, too young to understand, gave me a confused hug. Moving day was tough. Dad lived on the other side of town in a small apartment. It was clean but cluttered with memories of a life paused since Mom left him. He was standing there waiting for me with open arms and a worried smile. When I arrived, the apartment was nothing like the house I grew up in. My new room was half the size of my old one, with walls that needed paint and a window that looked out at a brick wall. But it was quiet, and Dad was trying his best to make it feel like home. The first day of the new school was rough. As I walked down the crowded hallways, I could feel the stares and hear the whispers. "That's the new girl," they'd say, as if I were some kind of oddity. In class, I kept to myself, dibbling in my notebook and trying to block out the murmurs. When the bell rang, I was the first one out the door, not wanting to linger. At home, Dad noticed my mood. "How is school?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. "It was fine," I lied, shrugging off my coat and dropping my bag by the door. "If it gets tough, you tell me, okay? We're in this together. You're not alone, Polly." His words meant a lot, but the loneliness I felt was deep. Knowing it wasn't just about missing my old friends or the big house, it was about feeling unwanted, like I was pushed out because I was too much of a burden. Adjusting to life at Dad's wasn't easy, but I quickly realized that if I didn't pull myself together, things would only get worse. One morning, I woke up, looked around my cramped room, and decided it was time to take charge of my life. "No one else is going to do it for me," I muttered under my breath. Dad noticed the change in me almost immediately. Over breakfast one day, he looked up from his coffee and said, "You're looking more determined these days, Polly. What's on your mind?" I stirred my cereal, thinking about how to put it into words. "I want to make something of myself, Dad. I don't want to end up stuck, you know." He nodded, a serious look crossing his face. "I hear you, kiddo. So what's the plan?" "That scholarship, the big one for the top students. I'm going to get it," I declared, more to convince myself than him. Dad's smile was all the encouragement I needed. "I needed that scholarship, and if anyone could get it, it was you," he said. "Just tell me what you need from me." School was tough, with long hours spent catching up and even longer evenings buried in books. My teachers noticed the change. Even the tough ones seemed to respect how hard I was working. Mr. Jeremy, my math teacher, kept me after class one day. "Polly, your work has improved a lot." "What's driving this?" he asked. "I need that scholarship," I replied bluntly, packing up my stuff. "I've got plans, and they don't include being stuck here forever." Mr. Jeremy studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Well, keep at it and let me know if you need extra help. I'm here." Making friends wasn't easy, but I managed to find a few people who didn't mind that I was focused on my goals. During lunch, I'd sit with Linda and Peter, two kids who weren't exactly popular, but knew how to laugh. "So, Polly, you're like a library ninja now, huh?" Peter joked one day, nudging me as we sat down with our trays. I cracked a smile. "Yeah, got to be stealthy if I want to snag the best study spots." Linda chimed in, her voice soft but sincere. "It's cool what you're doing, Polly. Most wouldn't bother." Days turned into months, and the pressure grew as the application deadlines got closer. Dad was my rock, always there with a hot meal and a listening ear whenever the stress became too much. The day I got the scholarship letter, my hands were shaking as I tore it open. Dad was right there, holding his breath. I scanned the words, my heart pounding, and then I cheered so loud the neighbors probably heard. "I got it, Dad. I got it." I jumped up, the letter flapping in my hand like a flag of victory. Dad swept me up in a big hug, laughing and cheering right along with me. "I knew it. I knew you could do it." As I packed up my things for college a few months later, I felt ready. The future was bright, and for the first time, it felt like it was truly mine. I was leaving, but I was taking all these lessons, all this love, and hard-earned wisdom with me. After graduating with honors and establishing a solid career, I finally felt like I was on stable ground. I was 25, doing well at my job, and had just started dating a great guy from work named Eric, who had been nothing but supportive. Then, out of the blue, my mom called. We hadn't spoken much since I moved out, but suddenly here she was asking, no, telling me something. Polly, your sister Mary is going to college in your city. We've paid her tuition, and we think it'd be best if she stayed with you, Mom said, making it clear this wasn't just a suggestion. I hesitated, memories of our strained relationship running through my mind, but I wanted to believe things could be different this time. Okay, Mom, I'll help Mary out. It might be nice to reconnect, I said, trying to keep any doubts out of my voice. Mary moved in 2 weeks later, and it was obvious right away that we were very different. She was as stunning as ever, completely focused on her looks and living a high-maintenance lifestyle. She brought with her a suitcase full of expectations and a personality that expected them to be met. Can you make sure we have almond milk and kale? I'm on a special diet, Mary said casually on her first evening, checking herself out in the mirror. Sure, I'll add them to the grocery list, I replied, trying to be accommodating. But living with Mary turned out to be harder than I expected. She partied like there was no tomorrow, often coming home at dawn, her carefree laughter echoing through the apartment while I lay awake worrying about work meetings and presentations. One afternoon, Eric came over while Mary was getting ready for another night out. I noticed how she smiled at him just a bit too sweetly, and for a bit too long. After she left, Eric spoke up. Polly, I think Mary's got the wrong idea about me. She's been, well, flirty. I felt a wave of anger and embarrassment. Thanks for telling me, Eric. I'll talk to her. When I confronted Mary, she just laughed it off. Oh, come on, Polly. I'm just being friendly. Besides, can I help it if he likes me back? That's my fiancé. I said, my voice firm. You need to respect that. Her laugh turned cold. Polly, I'm used to getting what I want. I always have. That was the last straw. I couldn't live like this, feeling like I had to guard my life from my own sister. You need to find another place to live, Mary. This isn't working out, I said, making it clear that I meant it. I told her my decision was final, and Mary stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Within an hour, my phone rang. It was Mom, and her voice was cold and sharp. You're such a jealous girl, Polly. You can't stand to see your sister happy, can you? I just want respect, Mom. That's all, I replied, but it was like talking to a wall. After that, things went quiet between Mary and me. I heard through the grapevine that she dropped out of college and was drifting through her social circles on charm and whims. As for me, I refocused on my life with Eric, my work, and rebuilding my boundaries. 3 years flew by since I last tried to patch things up with my family. Things were going well for me. I was moving up at work, and life with Eric was better than ever. That's when I heard the news about Mary. She had dropped out of college and was getting married to some rich guy she'd met. Feeling a mix of curiosity and goodwill, I picked up the phone to call home and offer my congratulations. Mom answered, her voice cold and distant as always. Mom, I heard about Mary's wedding. I just wanted to say congratulations. I started, trying to keep my tone light. Well, don't bother. "We're not waiting for you at the wedding. It's for rich people only, and we don't need any beggars there." She spat out her words, cutting deep. I clenched the phone a little tighter, feeling the old sting of rejection. "Really, Mom? That's how you're going to be? What did you expect, Polly? You've always been the difficult one. Just stay away," she said before hanging up. I stood there, phone in hand, the dial tone echoing in my ear. The hurt was real, but I wasn't going to let it ruin me. I found out later that they'd spared no expense on Mary's wedding, hiring popular artists and actors to make it a lavish affair. Time passed, and life didn't stand still for me either. Eric proposed, and suddenly, I was planning my own wedding. Nothing extravagant, but every bit filled with love and sincerity. I called Dad to share the news. He was overjoyed. "Polly, that's wonderful. You bet I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, his voice brimming with happiness. Encouraged by Dad's reaction, I made one last attempt to bridge the gap with my mom. I dialed her number, my heart racing as I waited for her to pick up. "Mom, I'm getting married. I want you to come," I said, holding my breath. Her reply was as cold as a winter breeze. "No, Polly, not interested in attending some modest gathering of losers. Count me out." I swallowed hard, fighting back the hurt. "All right, Mom. Take care," I said and hung up, knowing it was probably the last time I'd invite her into my life. Our wedding day was simple but beautiful. Dad walked me down the aisle, his presence a steady comfort. The room was filled with genuine smiles and heartfelt congratulations, a stark contrast to the grandeur and coldness of Mary's wedding spectacle. Our modest reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and stories. Eric and I mingled with friends and family who loved us for who we were, not for money or status. Life was going well, and Eric and I were thrilled to be expecting our first child. Then, one ordinary afternoon, my phone rang, and the voice on the other end turned my day upside down. It was Mom, and she wasn't calling to congratulate me. "Polly, you have to take us in. We're desperate," she blurted out without even a hello. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "It's all gone wrong. Kyle's business failed. We mortgaged the house for Mary's wedding, and now it's all just gone. And your sister's marriage is over. Her husband kicked her out and is demanding money for her cheating," she explained hurriedly, her voice edged with panic. I took a deep breath, trying to process the flood of information. "Okay, slow down. What exactly are you asking of me?" "We need a place to stay, all of us. We're coming to your house," she stated matter-of-factly, as if it were the most obvious solution. The request, or rather the demand, hit me hard. "No, Mom, you can't just decide to move in with us. It doesn't work like that. Polly, you owe us after everything we've done for you," she snapped, her voice sharp and commanding. That struck a nerve. "Oh, Mom, remember how you were when I needed you most. You pushed me out. You chose everything over me, and now you expect me to just open my doors." You raised your voice. "Polly, you're being egotistical. Is your sense of family still present? You've never allowed me to forget that I am your mother. However, motherhood isn't as defined as you may believe. It's not about making demands," I shot back, getting impatient. Even over the phone, her rage was evident. "Polly, you'll regret doing this. I may even go to court to receive what I'm entitled to." I laughed out, though more out of incredulity than anything else. "Go ahead, Mom, and try. Recall that my father was my protector when you expelled me. Which claim are you going to make? That when you kicked your daughter out, she wouldn't allow you to live off of her? She eventually snarled before hanging up, and there was a moment during which I could practically hear her thinking, "This isn't over, Polly." Life felt like a real new beginning following that final contact with Mom. Eric and I were preoccupied with preparing the nursery, choosing paint colors, putting the crib together, and managing the typical highs and lows of pregnancy. I was arranging some baby clothing we had recently purchased, putting them nicely into the new dresser, on a bright and early Friday morning. While in the corner, Eric was using an electric screwdriver, making a buzzing sound. He stopped and gave me a quick wipe of his forehead before grinning at me. "Polly, how are things doing over there? Do you need any assistance?" "I understand. Thank you." Simply contemplating everything. "Really? This is happening?" I touched a small, flimsy onsie in response. "It is, in fact," Eric announced. "We're going to be parents," with astonishment and a hint of apprehensive enthusiasm in his voice. A knock on the door occurred at that very moment. It astonished me. Who could it be on a Friday morning thus early? I carried on organizing while Eric went to answer it. After I heard voices, Eric yelled, "Polly, this is for you." I was taken aback to see my dad standing in the living room, holding a teddy bear and grinning broadly. "A surprise," he cried out. "What are you doing here, Dad?" I hurried over to give him a great embrace, unable to contain my excitement. He handed me the soft, cuddly teddy bear and added, "I wanted to come and see how my favorite daughter is doing, and I brought something for my future grandchild." "I'm grateful, Dad. That you're here means the world to me," I said, a little choked up. After we took a seat, Dad took in the half-built baby furniture and the piles of baby books. "It appears like you're about ready for the tiny one," he remarked. "We're making an effort. We're excited, albeit it's a lot," I said to him before pausing and biting my lip. "Dad, Mom and I spoke on the phone again. Things didn't go smoothly." Dad became serious in his expression. "Your mom told me about it. Was she not overly happy, was she?" "No, she wasn't. But I didn't back down, Dad. I needed to, for the baby, for Eric, and for myself. Here we need peace," I firmly stated. We spent the day laughing and telling stories, and just hanging out with Dad, who occasionally offered us some amusing parenting advice. It was a pleasant day, the kind of day you know you'll remember with nostalgia. Dad, Eric, and I were sitting on the porch watching the sun set and the sky become pink and orange, with a light breeze rustling the leaves. Eric enveloped me with his arm, and I snuggled closer to him. I looked out at the waning light and added, "I feel lucky we have each other, and we're about to start this amazing new chapter, despite everything with Mom and all the drama. I think it's going to be fantastic." "That's going to happen." Eric gave me a head kiss and said, "We've got this, Polly." I was deeply content and prepared for what lay ahead as night fell, and Dad said his farewell. Even though my mom's difficulties and the uncertainty of fresh starts had been difficult, they had brought me to this point where I am now surrounded by love and support.